Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. I am Kevin Rogers as we take you through what happened this past weekend in Major League Baseball, in the NBA. We'll look back at the Oscars quickly and a lot to get to with everything, and also got a lot to look ahead to tonight as we take you through the Daily Insider. We appreciate you joining us either through our homepage at VegasInsider.com or on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. And want to remind you about our daily contest here on the Daily Insider. Very simple, that you give us a best bet. Drop it in the comments section under this video, not on the live chat, but the comments section. Your user ID from VegasInsider.com and also your best bet for tonight, whether it's Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, doesn't matter. If you do not have a user ID for our website, it's very easy to get to. You go to the big yellow register button in the upper right corner, and you can fill out all the information. Once you go to free membership, register now. Remember, it's free, so you don't have to pay anything for it. Free membership. You click on that, register now, and you go to this page with your you fill out an ID, you create your own ID, password, email address so we can get in contact with you. And once you have that, once you have a user ID, then you can put that in the comments section along with your best bet for tonight. Whether it's a first 5-inning play, a money line, a total, a player prop, it doesn't matter. You pretty much can do whatever you want as long as A, you do it before the game, obviously. B, no live betting. We're not going to do any of that. It's got to be before the game. C, it's got to be a winner for you to win. And D, what do you win? You win a week's worth of any handicapper on Vegas Insider, their picks. So 7 days of a handicapper's picks on VegasInsider.com. Our marketing department will get in touch with you. That's why we need your user ID. If you're just, Joe Schmo and you have the Wizards tonight, that's not good enough. We need to have your user ID. If you're Joe Schmo 1 and that's your user ID, then that's all fine. Then we'll get in touch with you. But we will draw out. So if we have several people there, and not everyone's going to win. We're only going to have one winner for today. And then if you don't win today, you can come back tomorrow and try to win again. So go to the comment section on this video at the bottom. User ID, your best bet for tonight. And also, what we need from you as well to make sure that you are a subscriber. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at VegasInsider.com. And you also have to be a subscriber to win. So subscribe to our channel at VegasInsider.com, and you will be good to go for tonight. All right, with all that being said, let's get to the action. And we'll start with Major League Baseball. And we'll look back at yesterday and the weekend in total for MLB. And we'll start, the Mets end up shutting out the Nationals 4-0 at Citi Field. So a couple of good pitching performances by the New York Mets over the weekend. Obviously, Jacob deGrom was fantastic in the first game. And the Nationals win the middle game of that series. And then the Mets come back and win yesterday, the under 7.5 hits in New York. They will face Boston coming up tomorrow in interleague play, so that should be a pretty entertaining series. The Cincinnati Reds had the best offense in baseball the first 6-7 games of the season. They were the story. They can't hit anything right now. They got swept by the Cardinals at Busch Stadium, and Jack Flaherty, now the Cardinals 5-0 when he starts. So that's a very important number moving forward. He pitches well again. And the Reds, like they've done the last few games, they mount these rallies late or get bases loaded late when they're down 2 or 3 runs. And they had that yesterday, bases loaded at the end. They ground out to end the game. Cincinnati just can't hit the ball now. And on the road, they have 2 wins. They have been horrible on the road so far this season. The Cardinals pick up a sweep there of the Reds at home. Also in the National League Central, this one got kind of scary. If you had the under in the Brewers-Cubs game, you were cruising along, 6.5 total at Wrigley. Brandon Woodruff tosses a gem. Brewers up 1-0 and holds up till the 9th. Milwaukee scores 5 runs in the top of the 9th inning, and they had opportunities to maybe get to 6 runs in the top of the 9th. but they end up shutting out the Cubs 6-0 at Wrigley. Milwaukee finishes off the road trip 5-1. Very impressive. They had one clunker Friday afternoon where the Cubs scored 10 runs in the first 2 innings, but then Milwaukee comes back, wins on Saturday with not a lot of offense, and then on Sunday the same thing. It busted out late, but very good pitching performances by the Brewers, and they take 5 of 6 on the road trip. They return home to play the Marlins coming up tonight. The Phillies get blown out by the Rockies. I mean, if Colorado played every game at home, they may have a chance to win the NL West, but that's just not the case. They got to play 81 away from Coors Field, where they're already 0-6. But Colorado scores 7 in the 4th inning. They have a pretty good weekend against the Phillies. They take 2 of 3. So Colorado, the offense has looked good at Coors. It just hasn't translated to the road. So we'll see what happens with that. But Philadelphia, they had that hot start, and they really have not been able to come together. So we'll see what the Phillies do. They go to St. Louis tonight. The Giants stay hot at home. It was pouring early in that game against the Marlins. They get 3 in the bottom of the second, and they hold off the Marlins 4-3 to take 3 of 4 from Miami. So the Giants and Marlins done for the season after they just played a pair of series over the past 10 days or so. And San Francisco continues to play well at home. Only 2 losses so far on the season at Oracle Park. The big game out west last night, in case you were watching the Oscars and you missed this one, what a game this was between the Dodgers and the Padres. LA goes up 7-1 in the 6th inning. Joe Musgrove got chased early. A Fernando Tatis error in the second made Musgrove throw a bunch of pitches. He got out of a few jams, in fact. He was actually lucky to be down 2-1, but then everything imploded in the 6th inning as the Dodgers put up 5. They hit a couple homers in that frame, but then San Diego chips away at the lead. Dustin May pitched well, too, but San Diego chipped away 2 in the 7th, 2 in the 8th, 2 in the 9th to tie it, and then they get 1 in the top of the 11th to win it 8-7. So San Diego, after losing the first 2 to the Dodgers this year at Petco, they won that Sunday game last week. They came back against Trevor Bauer. They got swept at home by the Brewers, but then they take 3 of 4 against LA. So they've taken 4 of the past 5 against the Dodgers, which is very impressive. And Fernando Tatis had, 5 homers in the last few games for San Diego. So he continues to hit the ball. The fielding has been shaky at times. But the Padres, I'm not going to say left for dead. It's only April, but they really needed to gain a little bit of ground on the Dodgers this weekend, and they did that. Now, obviously, San Francisco is still a factor right now, but San Diego ends up winning that game 8-7. The one thing that really annoys me, and I love baseball, I will always defend baseball, but this is what really annoys me, is when you're getting to extra innings, and I'm not even talking about the runner on second. I'm going a different direction with this. When you need Clayton Kershaw to pinch hit in the 10th because you're running out of guys, that's bad. That's the one thing I don't like, is when you're starting to get pitchers that have to pinch hit because you're running out of bodies. And there's automatic outs at that point. So those are things, hopefully, when you get to the postseason and you see, because we're assuming a Padres-Dodgers series is in the mix, you don't really want to see that. They're not going to change the rules, but I wish there was something different where you don't have to resort to that. It's kind of like you're playing in an NFL game, and on the final drive of the game, we're going to pull Aaron Rodgers and bring the third-string quarterback in just because he left a little earlier, but then came back. I know football's a bad example, but more of my point is, this is what you're running into now, that you have to use up these guys. You take them out of the game, now they're gone, and now you're just using guys that don't bat at all, that have to get a hit in the situation, have to even make contact, and they can't even do it. So regardless, the Padres, Musgrove didn't pitch well last night, and they still get off the hook, and they win at 8-7 over LA. So the total of 7 was obliterated in that one. Oakland had their 13-game winning streak snapped by Baltimore. 5 runs in the 8th for the Orioles, and the Orioles have been terrible at home this season, but they finally get one against Oakland, and the A's finally lose a game. But Baltimore wins it 8-1 at home, and the Orioles now get the Yankees. So they go from the A's to the Yankees. And we'll get to the Yankees in a second. Boston, how about this total? 5-1 at the end of 2 on an 8.5. So 5-1, you get 6 runs, you get 3 more. Seattle gets 2 more. Boston doesn't score the rest of the way, and the Red Sox went 5-3. So that's kind of a burn there. But the Mariners still had a pretty good weekend against the Red Sox. They took a couple at Fenway. And for whatever reason, Boston's played better on the road than they have at home this season. But the Red Sox, they really needed that win yesterday after having some struggles against Seattle earlier in that series. So the Yankees had an opportunity to pull off a 4-game sweep of the Indians. They go up 3-0 in the top of the fourth, give up 4 in the bottom of the fourth. So this is what happens. When you have Garrett Cole and Shane Bieber going on Saturday, runs are at a premium. When those guys aren't in, you get anybody else on the mound, you got to find an over. And 7 runs scored in 1 inning between the Yankees and the Indians, and Cleveland ends up pulling away. They win 7-3, so they avoid the sweep there. But the Yankees, the only good news for them coming out of the weekend was they took 3 of 4, so kind of coming back to life a little bit, even though the offense had some good games the first 2 games. There was a pitcher's duel on Saturday against Shane Bieber, and Garrett Cole finally bounced back. But the Yankees, though, they still take 3 of 4 in that series, but Cleveland, they're still struggling a bit. Kansas City continues to play very well. They shut out Detroit 4-0, so they've taken 3 of the first 4 in that series. Game 4 is today at Comerica Park. Detroit's offense has been abysmal. And the Royals, that's now 3 really good pitching performances in this series. Now, granted, Detroit's offense is terrible. Miguel Cabrera came back to the lineup for the Tigers, but that didn't really mean much. And you went from Mike Minor in the first game to Brady Singer in the second game and Danny Duffy yesterday. And these are games, if the Royals want to be a threat in the AL Central, which, again, the Twins have totally spiraled out of control early. They were supposed to be up there with the White Sox to win the division. Chicago's up and down. They're playing well, though. If you want to be in that conversation, you got to beat the Tigers. And that's what the Royals have been doing. That when you look at so far, they beat Detroit 3 times. They beat the Rangers a few times. Toronto's an up-and-down team. They beat them a few times. You got to win those games if you're going to be considered to be a team that could win this division or be maybe in the wild card mix in the American League. So good job by the Royals. They got good pitching, and they have Game 4 today. The Blue Jays edged the Rays 1-0. Hyun-Jin Ryu left with an injury, and Tampa Bay, they continue to struggle at home. They beat the Yankees a few times, but they lose 3 to Texas. They lose a couple to Toronto this past weekend. I know that they lost Friday with Tyler Glasnow going, and they were a huge favorite. But Toronto made that short trip to Tampa Bay from Dunedin, so that wasn't, or from Dunedin to St. Pete's, not very far. So Toronto actually had a good weekend there and beat Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay gets Oakland coming up tonight. That's going to be a really good series. The White Sox, just talk about them. The White Sox had to scratch Lucas Giolito before yesterday's game. They still win, though, 8-4. So after a low-scoring game on Saturday, they get a high-scoring game yesterday. And the Rangers, who have pulled off some decent wins as a road dog, they end up losing to the White Sox in Chicago. Now they're kind of coming back to life. They had a bit of a slow start, but when you look at what the White Sox have done, they pull off a 3-game sweep of Texas. Before that, they split the 4 with the Red Sox. They had the no-hitter against Cleveland. So really, I mean, they're getting it together, and that's a good sign. The Angels hold off the Astros 4-2. So Houston, after having a couple offensive explosions early in the series, they get a good pitching performance from Dylan Bundy, and they beat the Astros 4-2. In interleague, Pittsburgh over Minnesota 6-2. That's a really good job by the Pirates. They took 2 of 3 from Minnesota. The Twins scored 2, 2, and 2 in the 3 games against Pittsburgh. And the Pirates, who are a team that was expected to be around 60-something wins this year, they've been impressive. They played very well. They've won a series at Minnesota. They've won a series at Milwaukee. They've taken a couple from the Cubs this year. They beat San Diego a few times. Pittsburgh actually, for as much as people don't want to talk about them, and the NL Central is very average right now, or up for grabs, depending on how you want to look at it. Is Pittsburgh going to win it? No, but at least they're competitive right now. Now, the other big story besides the Padres-Dodgers yesterday in Major League Baseball was the Diamondbacks. They hold the Braves to 1 hit in 2 games. Zach Gallen wins the first game against Atlanta. And then Madison Bumgarner, who struggled mightily to start the season, then beat Washington his last time out, he throws a no-hitter against Atlanta. Arizona gets 5 in the first. They win 7-0. The controversy was, is it really a no-hitter? This is the first 7-inning no-hitter we've seen since last year they changed the rules for the doubleheaders that are 7 innings long. I still maintain it's a no-hitter. It's a full game. That's what it is. He was asked to play 7 innings. He threw the 7 innings, threw a no-hitter, and that's it. But it looks like they may not be considering it, considering it's not a 9-inning no-hitter, which is ridiculous. But even more ridiculous probably is the Atlanta Braves. Their big lineup, they get 1 hit in 14 innings against Arizona. They faced 2 really good pitchers. I mean, let's not take away from Zach Gallen, who is a good young pitcher for the Diamondbacks. Madison Bumgarner was once excellent with San Francisco. He's taken a step back in Arizona, but he still has pitched well of late, and when he's got it, he's a pretty good pitcher. But Atlanta's got to get their stuff together pretty soon. So, with all that being said, let's go to Monday. And who do we start with? The Atlanta Braves, right off the top against the Cubs. Second straight of, 3 series that they're playing? The Cubs and the Braves, because they played a week and a half ago at Wrigley. Well, no, they played the Yankees in between. So, second series in about 10 days-ish with these two. Charlie Morton, Zach Davies on the mound. This total's at 8.5. I believe Atlanta's bats are going to bust out tonight. Are they going to win? I don't know, but I think the bats come back. They were embarrassed yesterday. They heard all about it. I think they come back. Chicago, their bats have been very inconsistent. We've said that all season. They had a huge game, the Saturday game against the Braves. They had a huge game this past Friday against Milwaukee, but yet they kind of fall apart. It was freezing in Chicago yesterday. It's going to be warmer in Atlanta. That's going to make a difference. Zach Davies hasn't been strong lately. Charlie Morton's been good at home for the Braves. I think this one goes over. I think this is the one where the bats bust out a little bit. This is a very intriguing matchup in Milwaukee tonight. The Brewers and the Marlins. Trevor Rogers, no relation. He wasn't great his first start of the season against the Cardinals. He's actually been really good his last few starts. He beat the Mets, Jacob deGrom and the Mets, for his first win of the season, had another big underdog win against the Braves, and then beat the Orioles his last time out. Now, on the flip side, Corbin Burnes, if it wasn't for Jacob deGrom doing what he's doing right now with the Mets, Corbin Burnes would be the favorite to win the Cy Young Award in the National League. But Corbin Burnes is right behind deGrom. Corbin Burnes, so far this season, has 40 strikeouts and no walks. 0 walks in 4 starts is unbelievable. Now he's laying 180. Milwaukee they're coming off a 5-1 road trip. And the Marlins off losing 3 or 4 against San Francisco. I think this sets up well for the Marlins. That Corbin Burnes, a lot of people may be jumping on this train. I feel like a little late now. He's going to be a heavy favorite moving forward in a lot of these games. This is the first time this season that the Brewers are facing a left-handed starting pitcher. They're 13-8, 22 games it's taking them to face a left-handed starting pitcher. Christian Yelich is still out. Lorenzo Cain is still out. I just don't know where they get the offense from. That's the problem with Milwaukee. You could pitch great. You can go with Woodruff and Burnes and pitch great, but you still need some offense. And Trevor Rogers is a decent pitcher for the Marlins. This is a really tough game, I believe. Phillies and the Cardinals, Zach Wheeler and Adam Wainwright. Wheeler has not been sharp of late. Wainwright's up and down. St. Louis off the sweep of Cincinnati, while the Phillies had a rough weekend in Colorado. This one basically a pick 'em. I think this game is extremely difficult to pick. Colorado's at San Francisco, so second time the Rockies are playing the Giants on the road. And Austin Gomber has been a really good pickup for the Rockies from the Cardinals in the Nolan Arenado trade, where Gomber has gone at least 6 innings each of his last 3 starts. One of those, he gave up 1 hit against the Giants, but he got no offensive support from the Rockies lineup, and Gomber lost the first time around to the Giants. Anthony DeSclafani blanked the Rockies last time he faced him in that same series opposite German Marquez in the Sunday game. So now DeSclafani is a huge favorite. this one could maybe sneak over the total because we saw a lot of unders. Colorado's road numbers have not been good, but I think after a good weekend against the Phillies, you just got to hope that the bats travel from Coors Field to San Francisco. That's the big issue with the Colorado Rockies, that they are hitting the ball well at home, but on the road they're not. And the Giants they're 8-2 at home. Colorado's 0-6 on the road, but it's about who's going to put together that dominating performance again against the opponent. Will Gomber do it against the Giants, or will Desclafani do it against the Rockies? The Reds and the Dodgers. Now, I backed the Reds the entire weekend against the Cardinals, and Cincinnati actually didn't have bad pitching performances. Luis Castillo wasn't sharp. I thought Wade Miley pitched well on Saturday, but he didn't get the offensive support. And even on Friday, Sonny Gray, he was all right, wasn't great. And the Reds lose all three to St. Louis. So now they're 2-7 on the road. They go to L.A. tonight. And Tyler Mahle is a very improved pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds. It's about the Reds getting some sort of offense. They're scoring 10 runs a game to start the season. Now they can't get any runs. Now you're facing the Dodgers and Julio Urias, who is a good young pitcher for L.A. But what I wonder, I don't want to pull the trigger on the Reds tonight. I really, really don't, because they burn me so much. But at the same time, Mahle's a decent pitcher. You got to wonder the fallout for the Dodgers off this Padres series loss. That's the big question. That is LA going to have just a letdown tonight where they're facing a Cincinnati team that's struggling, and you got to figure the Reds are going to be somewhat energized and motivated considering they had a bad weekend against the Cardinals. Now you're facing the world champions. So maybe look at Cincinnati, but I really don't want to trust them, but also I don't want to fall in the trap with the Dodgers that they're just going to play better tonight and they don't. Kansas City, Detroit, we talked about that a little earlier. Basically a pick 'em. I don't want to trust the Tigers. I really don't, because their offense has been horrific. They can't produce any runs whatsoever, and that game's getting going in about 45 minutes or so. I don't want to trust the Tigers. And even on the total, how do you take the over when Detroit's proven they can't score? Minnesota and Cleveland. Good pitching matchup tonight. Jose Berrios and Zach Plesac on the mound. I think it's another case here like the Braves. I think with the Twins, this is an overlook that Minnesota's offense has been terrible of late. 6 runs against the Pirates. They got shut out twice in Oakland before that crazy 10-inning loss where, was it 13-12 they lost to the A's. Minnesota's got the bats. It's just they've been struggling. I think maybe they bust out tonight in Cleveland. And Zach Plesac's allowed 6 runs in each of his last 2 starts, both against the White Sox, a much better offensive team right now than the Twins. But Plesac hasn't been sharp. Berrios' numbers kind of dipped a bit against the Indians last season. He had good numbers against Cleveland for most of his career. But this one could maybe sneak over the total in Cleveland. The Yankees and the Orioles, they meet in Baltimore. You see the Orioles 2-8 at home. They ended Oakland's long winning streak last night, and now both teams are 9-12. Who would have thought that? That the Yankees 9-12 actually doesn't look too bad. They were 5-10 at one point, so they've won 4 of 6 to save a little bit of face. Davey Garcia and Matt Harvey on the mound, and Matt Harvey, the Dark Knight of New York, now in Baltimore after a couple other stops. Again, Baltimore at times past John Means on the mound, and he went yesterday. I find it hard to back Matt Harvey, but the Yankees are going to be favored in this one because they're the Yankees, and the Orioles are not as good as the Yankees. Simple as that. That's the breakdown you get here on the Daily Insider. The A's and the Rays coming up from St. Pete tonight. Sean Manaea and Rich Hill. So the veteran Rich Hill's given up 4 runs each of his first 4 starts, which is a little insane. Oakland, again, with them off the 13-game winning streak getting snapped. How do they respond tonight? Tampa Bay has just been so up and down at home. And Oakland, 14-8, extremely impressive. They were 0-6 at one time. The Angels and the Rangers, Shohei Ohtani takes the mound for L.A. as they stay in the Lone Star State after they beat the Astros yesterday. And they got Texas, who got swept at home by the Padres. They also got no hit in one of those games. They lost 2 of 3 to Baltimore, and they took 2 of 3 against Toronto. So Texas definitely a lot more success on the road than at home, and Jordan Lyles has pitched well on the road. But for Texas, look, another one of these teams, Texas and Baltimore, 2 teams that play better on the road than at home. It's just been a weird thing. Seattle and Houston, they wrap up the night, or wrap up the American League portion of the card, and it's Jose Urquidy and Justice Sheffield on the mound. Urquidy, he pitched well against the Mariners last time out, didn't get the run support, and then he got racked against the Rockies his last time on the mound, and Houston with the wins back to 500. They had a good start, fell apart, and now played a little better against the Angels this past weekend. Seattle 13-9 and 7-4 on the road. But you see what Sheffield is, plus 155 tonight. It's a high total of 9. These teams really didn't score last time they played in Seattle. Not this past weekend, but the weekend before. The NBA, let's take a look at that. We'll take a look back at Sunday and then a heavy card on Monday. Let's begin with Sunday. Only 7 games. We'll go through this fast. Charlotte beats Boston 125-104, a game that the Hornets were in control of. Hornets playing a little better right now. Again, they're down a lot of big guns. Miles Bridges played very well for them. He's stepped up in a big way for Charlotte. So they beat Boston, and the Celtics just put up a dud yesterday. Easy over in that one. Another over there in Brooklyn. That one, again, first 6 minutes of that quarter, you thought you were on an under pace between the Suns and the Nets, but then things kind of blew up at the end of the first quarter there, and Brooklyn was trailing by double digits to Phoenix. They're trailing by double digits, and they end up coming back and winning. That one closed at 1, and the Nets get Kevin Durant back. Big second half. Brooklyn ends up sweeping Phoenix. So the Suns, who started off this road trip winning at Milwaukee in overtime, beating Philadelphia by 3, and then they had a clunker against Boston, and then we're right there back and forth with Brooklyn. So they lose twice. They go to New York tonight to face the Knicks, so they stay in New York City. But the Suns going backwards a little bit, obviously with Brooklyn. Just wait for James Harden to come back and hope Kevin Durant stays healthy, because you got Durant and Kyrie in there. Now it's about getting Durant, Kyrie, and Harden in, and then seeing what those 3 guys can do with the rest of their supporting pieces on the Nets, what kind of factor they can be in the Eastern Conference. We know that they are a factor already, but can they be the team to beat? You just got to get those 3 guys healthy at the same time. Memphis holds off Portland 120-113. This game stayed under the total barely. Damian Lillard had a 3-pointer at the buzzer he missed. The Grizzlies take 2 from Portland, and you see they're up at the half. Portland made it interesting late. They cut it down to 3, but there was a turnover and an inbound, and John Morant got a steal, which helped put that game away for the Grizzlies. So they take 2 from Portland. Looking quickly at the Blazers and what they've done recently, 5 consecutive losses, and you look at that road trip, or the homestand rather, excuse me. They go on this road trip 0-4. They get Indiana and Memphis on a back-to-back, so you get a little double revenge with Memphis coming up in a few days, and Brooklyn, Boston, Atlanta. Portland, things are looking bad for them very, very quickly. This was a Blazer team that was in the playoff mix, and they have taken a huge step back. And Damian Lillard's back, so they don't have excuses with him being out. Washington, they have won 8 straight as they beat Cleveland 119-110. Big comeback in the fourth quarter for the Wizards. And in spite of the fact of this 8-game winning streak, they've covered 7 times. I mean, some of the competition, yes, they beat Utah at the start. Yes, very good win. Sacramento, New Orleans, Detroit, OKC. They came back against Golden State, OKC again, Cleveland. Now they got some tough games coming up with the Spurs and the Lakers. And they got a lot of road games coming up. Good job by Washington to come back and win 8 straight and to come back last night, but they've cleaned up against some not-so-great competition. Very good job by the Atlanta Hawks yesterday, beating Milwaukee 111-104. They come back in the fourth. You see that, outscore the Bucks by 15. First time they beat the Bucks in 3 meetings this season. Trae Young out again for the Hawks, but they beat the Heat and the Bucks back-to-back as a home dog, or 2 days apart. But it's a really good job by Atlanta there to beat Milwaukee. The Hawks are going to be in the top 4 when it's all said and done. As long as things hold up, they'll be in the top 4 potentially in the East. Indiana pulls away from Orlando, 131-112. Another win for the Pacers when they play a team that's below 500. So, again, you got to take care of your business, and they do that. Golden State holds off Sacramento, 117-113. De'Aaron Fox, he's out for a little bit. COVID protocols for him. Steph Curry lights it up for Golden State again, but the Kings get the cover, 117-113 loss. The offense, as you see, kind of falls apart after that first quarter, but that one stays under the total. Now on to tonight, and the Lakers in Orlando to take on the Magic. So the Lakers off those 2 losses to Dallas with Anthony Davis back, and the Lakers laying 10 points to Orlando. And the Magic have totally fallen off. They were competitive for a little bit as a heavy road underdog, but even these games at home, they've been getting whacked in a lot of them. San Antonio's at Washington. Very interesting game there. Washington off the 8-game winning streak. San Antonio, remember, beat Washington pretty convincingly when they played back in January, but also that was Washington off of like a 2-week COVID break. So they play their first game and they get blown out by 20. So it's kind of unfair to judge them on that. But San Antonio still in that Southwest mix to win the division possibly. Even though they didn't get helped out by the Lakers as Dallas beat LA a few times. So San Antonio still right behind Dallas in the Southwest, but the Spurs trying to get into that play-in tournament. And San Antonio favored here off a win over New Orleans a few nights ago, and Washington, again, a home dog out on an 8-game winning streak. Atlanta's in Detroit. Hawks have beaten the Pistons twice this year. Hawks with no rest. Now you go from back-to-back home dog wins to road favorite. Very interesting to see what they'll do against Detroit. And the Pistons have won a couple in a row at home, granted not against great competition. But as you see, 11-16 at home, not a great record, but compared to their road record, which is, 6-27, Detroit's got a better shot to win at home than on the road. Philly gets Oklahoma City tonight, and the Thunder. That losing streak, I have lost track of it for Oklahoma City. But let's do a count here. Man, how many bad losing streaks have we seen this year? Houston had 20. Sacramento had a long one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 straight losses for the Thunder. 14, 15, 1-16 the last 17 games for Oklahoma City. They covered a couple in a row before they were blown out by Washington a few nights ago. Now they got Philly and Boston. Oklahoma City, I don't know the next time they're going to win a game. They do get the Kings 3 times, so maybe you beat them. But Philly laying 12 here against Oklahoma City. All right, big game of the night. Phoenix and New York from Madison Square Garden. This Knicks team, we got to go over them for a second. They've won 9 straight, and they have covered, 11 in a row? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in a row, excuse me. Let's go back to Saturday for a second, in case you missed this. So the Knicks open up as a 3.5-point favorite against the Raptors. That one got steamed down to a pick'em, and even Toronto was laying 1 at some places. Injuries? No. Sharp money came out of Toronto. The Knicks were up early. Raptors came back. They could never really separate themselves from the Knicks, but then New York took the lead and then pulled away. Julius Randle, who won't win the MVP, should be an MVP consideration since the Knicks are nowhere without him this year. He has been fantastic for the Knicks. And New York somehow has found a way to put together, under Tom Thibodeau, enough supporting pieces with Derrick Rose, who's kind of reborn now with the Knicks. With Derrick Rose, with R.J. Barrett, who's playing a lot better, and the other pieces around Randall that, look, I don't know how far they're going to go in the Eastern Conference playoffs, but right now they're playing very, very well, and they keep getting doubted by the odds makers. Home underdog to Atlanta, win. Home underdog New Orleans, win in overtime. Home underdog to the Grizzlies in overtime, and they win. last bad loss for the Knicks came to Dallas earlier this month, but even 2-point loss to the Nets, 2-point loss to the Celtics, 1-point loss to the Sixers, 3-point loss to the Sixers. They had the 5-point loss to Brooklyn. They've had a lot of close shaves, the Knicks. So you look at their ATS run since mid-March, and they have 4 ATS losses in the last 5 weeks. They've been really, really good. And now you get Phoenix, and they're playing for the first time this season. Suns swept the Knicks last year, but Phoenix laying 2. Again, can this be another Knicks win at home as an underdog? 21-10 at the Garden this season for the Knicks. Toronto gets Cleveland tonight in Tampa, and the Raptors a heavy favorite there. Granted, no rest, which is good. Or granted, they have rest, so that's good. When they play with no rest, they're bad. Cleveland, I don't know if I trust them tonight in this spot after a tough loss to Washington last night. Toronto just blew out Cleveland a few weeks ago at Cleveland as an underdog. Tough one. You could make a case for Cleveland and say, all right, maybe they bounce back. How do you lay 10 with Toronto? But both these teams haven't been good. And the Raptors, at least before the Knicks game, they were playing better. Chicago's at Miami. The Heat laying 6 there. And the Heat still neck and neck with the Hawks for the top spot in the Southeast Division, and Chicago obviously out of it. Utah and Minnesota. Minnesota won in Salt Lake a few nights ago. They pulled off an upset. Somehow, think about this. Out of all the teams in the NBA, and granted not all teams have played twice at Salt Lake City this year, the Timberwolves have won twice at Utah. The Jazz have 4 home losses this season, all right? They have 4 home losses. They've lost to the Wizards and the Timberwolves twice. The other loss came to Phoenix, which obviously is fine. But 3 of their 4 losses are to Washington and Minnesota at home. How does that happen? Utah's offense did nothing. It's just a very odd circumstance in how they lost to Minnesota. So now the Timberwolves come home, and they get Utah again, and they're a heavy dog again. Minnesota, it's now 14 or 15 straight losses they have off a win. So now you got to depend on them off of a win here, but they're getting 9.5. Utah has found a way to pull off some of these big road blowouts. They did that to Houston a little bit ago. But, man, you got some real dogs in the NBA. When you look at Minnesota, Houston, Oklahoma City, I mean, there's some real schlep rocks in the NBA this year. Clippers laying 2 against New Orleans, and the Pelicans, we talked about them this year, is a very good home underdog. And they lost earlier this year to LA on the road. Kawhi still hurt. But the Clippers, I mean, that 43-19 record, man. Who needs Doc Rivers, right? Even though Doc's done a really good job in Philadelphia. 4 straight wins for the Clippers. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-1 the last 12. Very good job there by LA. The Nuggets and the Grizzlies tonight. And Memphis off the back-to-back wins at Portland. Let me show you what Memphis has done as an underdog recently, which is crazy. Like, the Knicks are getting a lot of credit, but what the Grizzlies are doing is very impressive too. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 ATS wins in a row as an underdog, all right? 8 consecutive ATS wins. In this stretch, 2, 3, 4 outright wins. All right. Okay, it wasn't as impressive. But they've hung with Denver twice. This is a very interesting situation against Denver tonight. So the Grizzlies have lost twice to the Nuggets this year, playing with double revenge, but they've covered both times. I'd be curious to see how teams do in that third game where you've lost both of them but covered both times. And they just lost in double overtime at Denver back on the 19th, last Monday. And now they wrap up this long road trip with the Nuggets again. And the Nuggets just lost to Golden State a few nights ago. And Denver just laying 4. So they're laying 7.5. Now they're laying 4 against an unrested team. And always the rule of thumb going when you're going in that second game of a back-to-back at Utah or Denver, it's always difficult. But why that line drop? Kind of curious there. Dallas laying 6 at Sacramento. Toughest game of the night by far. Why? Injuries. De'Aaron Fox out for Sacramento. Luka Doncic, he's a question mark. Kristaps Porzingis, question mark for the Mavericks. So, Dallas laying 6 at Sacramento. Kings with no rest off the loss to Golden State last night. And Dallas just lost to Sacramento at home. So all of a sudden now, the Mavs in a revenge spot playing the Kings without their top player. But Dallas, though, has still been a pretty good road team. They've been a little more dependable on the road than at home, it feels like. Even though the numbers are pretty close, but still a better road team than home team for the Dallas Mavericks. Also, we got coming up this week the NFL Draft. It is on Thursday. And there's a lot of analysis. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence can go number 1 to Jacksonville. Zach Wilson probably go number 2 to the Jets. Now the question is, Mac Jones, will he go 3 to San Francisco? And we'll see where Kyle Pitts from Florida, the tight end, where he goes. There's just a lot of question marks after the first 2 picks. And we'll have a lot more NFL draft talk coming up a little later in the week as we move closer towards the draft. Also, in case you missed the Oscars last night, don't know if you did or not, Nomadland won for Best Picture. Anthony Hopkins was the big upset, I guess, in the Best Actor category as he knocked off Chadwick Boseman, who was the favorite. But if anybody watched the Oscars last night, it just seemed like a very awkward broadcast. Very few people there. I mean, obviously, COVID, steps up. But it just didn't have the feel like it did of years past. And also when you haven't really seen a lot of these movies. We got to find them on Netflix or on Hulu or Amazon or wherever it is you got to find them. It's just hard when you don't have the same talk surrounding it, the same hype around it like you used to have years ago. You don't have that anymore. You have to kind of like search for these movies. But there was a lot of Oscar coverage here on the site last night. Tom Cunningham did a great job with all the Oscar previews, and in case you missed who won, you can find them on our homepage too. The Oscar recap. It was here. I have to ask Tom where it went. But it was here, though. The Oscar recap was here. Now, it's not, so it was here. I guess time ran out in the Oscars. But anyway, it still was a lot of good material if you were interested in betting on the Oscars. So, with all of that being said, want to remind you again about the contest that we have, our Daily Insider contest, that you put up your Vegas Insider user ID along with your best bet for the night. Baseball, hockey, NBA, doesn't matter. First 5 innings, total, player prop bet, whatever you want. As long as it's not a live bet. It cannot be a live bet. But anything else, you put that down. Make sure that you subscribe to our page. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. Make sure that you do it. Like and subscribe. And if you win, if you're in the drawing, obviously you have to win your play, but you'll be in the drawing to win a week's worth of handicapper picks from one handicapper, one, on VegasInsider.com of your choice. So the reason we need the user ID is so we can get in touch with you. Now, if you don't have a user ID, that's fine too, because you can create one. And you go to register up in the big yellow box, upper right-hand corner, free membership, register now, click on that button, and you have the ability to create your ID, your password, and your email address so we can get in contact with you. Simple as that. And also want to remind you about our selections too. You can buy picks from our handicappers, NBA, MLB, NHL, $29.95 per handicapper, and you can choose as many as you want, obviously. But I'm saying per handicapper. You can't, not $29.95 for 5 of them. It's for each handicapper. But each handicapper has a different amount of plays. So if you want Alex Smart, 3 plays, you click on it, and you can purchase his picks. Also, we have the guaranteed picks, which is only 1 pick per handicapper, $39.95. If you win your pick, you pay the $39.95. But if you lose, you pay nothing because it didn't win for you. It was a guarantee to win. It didn't win. So you don't pay anything for it. So we have that for NBA, Major League Baseball, NHL. Also, we have the Kentucky Derby coming up this week, so keep an eye out for that. Anthony Stabile does a great job with the breakdown of the Kentucky Derby. So it's back now in May. It's not in the fall. So keep an eye on that if you're into horses or you just want to see the Derby breakdown. A couple previews are up already on our homepage, so check that out. Also, first round betting odds for the NFL draft. You can find that as well on our homepage, as well as some NHL breakdowns for tonight's games, with the NHL regular season coming to a close pretty soon, and trying to get all those divisions figured out with all the seedings for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So, with all that being put out there, I am Kevin Rogers, and we appreciate you watching, and we'll be back with you coming up tomorrow on the Daily Insider right here on VegasInsider.com.